The trading floor erupted in chaos as Daniel Blake said, "Check the numbers again. This can't be real." The monitors flashed red across the room, each digit slicing through the silence that followed moments of disbelief. Amelia Hart, the company's CFO, whispered, "Daniel, we just lost 40% of our value in 1 minute." Her voice trembled, like glass under pressure. Outside, journalists gathered as rumors spread that an insider leak had triggered the downfall. Ethan Cross, the investor, stood frozen, his phone ringing unanswered. The secret that held their empire together was no longer hidden. A single document, uploaded anonymously, had shattered years of built trust. Daniel gripped the desk, his heart pounding as he said, "Someone wanted this to happen." The air thickened with fear, betrayal, and the sickening sound of realization. Daniel stood in his corner office, glass walls reflecting the chaos below. He said, "We built this company from nothing, and now it's falling apart in minutes." Amelia replied, "The board wants answers, Daniel. They think we hid something." Daniel's voice dropped as he whispered, "They're not wrong. A secret file buried deep in the company's archives held data that could destroy them all." Ethan's silence over the phone felt like betrayal. The city skyline outside looked calm, mocking their panic. Every second felt heavier than the last as Daniel realized that truth had escaped, and nothing would contain it again. Ethan sat in his car, engine idle, staring at the leaked document on his phone. He muttered, "So this is how it ends." He knew the report wasn't supposed to surface, not after what they had buried. A storm brewed above the skyline, mirroring the weight in his chest. He called Daniel but hesitated before speaking. "We're exposed," he said finally, his tone cold. Lightning flashed, illuminating his face, revealing guilt and fear. Somewhere in the city, the whistleblower watched, unseen but powerful. The game had begun, and every move now had a price. Amelia walked into the empty conference room where screens displayed collapsing market data. She said, "This isn't a crash. It's a takedown." The mentor, Richard Hale, entered slowly, his face shadowed with regret. "I warned you about keeping secrets," he said softly. Amelia turned, anger flashing in her eyes. "You knew, didn't you?" Richard nodded slightly, a man haunted by his past missteps. Outside the frosted glass, silhouettes of panicking employees moved like ghosts. Truth wasn't a shield, it was a weapon, and it had just been fired. Daniel sat alone at his desk. The office lights dimmed. The building felt empty, every echo carrying memories of ambition now turned to ruin. "It started with one lie," he whispered. He opened the anonymous email again, reading the attached document line by line. The numbers didn't just show loss. They told a story of manipulation, greed, and silence. Somewhere out there, someone had set them up to fall. Daniel leaned back, eyes burning, realizing this wasn't just a crash. It was a reckoning born from a secret that no longer slept. Daniel paced through the corridor, eyes locked on his phone as messages flooded in. "They're calling this the fastest corporate collapse of the decade," Amelia said, stepping beside him. Daniel replied, "We can't let them define our story before we know the truth." The walls around them echoed with footsteps of restless employees. Somewhere deep in the servers lay a missing file that could explain everything. Richard had hinted at something buried years ago, something Daniel never wanted to see. "We'll trace it," Amelia whispered, clutching a flash drive. But Daniel knew uncovering the truth meant tearing apart their own past. The company's foundations trembled not from numbers, but from secrets. Amelia sat alone in the darkened server room, screens flickering like restless stars. She whispered, "Show me where it started." Files opened rapidly, encrypted, renamed, hidden. The deeper she searched, the more the trail blurred. Daniel's voice crackled through the intercom. "Find anything?" Amelia hesitated before saying, "Yes, but you're not going to like it." On the monitor, old transactions linked their company to offshore accounts Daniel had denied existed. It wasn't a hack. It was internal. The truth was staring back at them from their own network, a betrayal coded in plain sight. Daniel stormed into the boardroom where Ethan waited, his tie loosened, face pale. "You knew about these accounts," Daniel said sharply. Ethan replied, "We all did. We just didn't expect the world to find out." The silence felt heavier than truth itself. "You signed off on it," Daniel pressed. Ethan looked away, his voice low. "You told me to trust the numbers." The accusation cut through years of partnership. Each man stood at the edge of loyalty and ruin. The board's shadow loomed over them both, demanding someone to blame. Richard watched Daniel from his quiet corner office, hands clasped tightly. "You're chasing ghosts," he said as Daniel entered. Daniel replied, "No, I'm chasing whoever buried the truth." Richard sighed deeply. "When I warned you years ago, you said success mattered more than transparency." The memory hit Daniel like a cold wind. "So you did know," he said bitterly. "I knew someone was hiding money," Richard admitted, eyes lowered, "but I didn't know it would end like this." Their words carried the weight of a decade's silence, echoing louder than any crash. Amelia stared at the final piece. A transaction leading to an unknown name. "It's not a corporation," she said into her headset. "It's a person." Daniel froze on the other end. "Who?" Amelia enlarged the signature. "Ethan's assistant. A ghost employee linked to every suspicious deal. He has been laundering through false hires," she said, voice trembling. "The betrayal stretched deeper than anyone imagined," Daniel whispered. "Then we've been financing our own collapse." Outside, the night lights flickered across the skyline, marking the point of no return. The boardroom was tense, filled with murmurs of accusation and fear. Daniel stood at the head of the table, saying, "We have 2 days before the market delists us." Across the room, Ethan crossed his arms and said, "Maybe we should consider restructuring." Amelia snapped, "You mean surrender?" Every eye turned toward them, the weight of millions hanging between words. Richard entered quietly, watching the chaos he once warned against. "You can't fight the storm," he said, voice heavy with regret. Daniel slammed his folders shut, saying, "Then we build higher walls." The air felt electric. A war fought not with weapons, but with balance sheets and secrets. News outlets flooded every screen in the office. Amelia muttered, "They're calling it corporate sabotage." Daniel replied, "Then we need our own story." He called a press briefing, his voice firm but strained. "We were victims of manipulation," he said to flashing cameras. Yet the words felt hollow even to him. Outside, protesters gathered with signs demanding justice for investors. Ethan's phone buzzed endlessly, messages from rivals and regulators. Amelia whispered, "Truth doesn't sell, scandal does." Daniel looked out through the glass, watching the crowd roar, realizing reputation was a currency they no longer owned. Behind closed doors, a quiet voice spoke. "They know too much." It belonged to Laura Grant, the whistleblower. She sat across from Richard in a small cafe, her laptop open to hidden files. "If I go public, they'll destroy me," she said. Richard leaned forward, replying, "If you don't, they'll destroy everyone else." Her hands trembled as she hovered over the send key. Outside, the rain fell like static, the world unaware of the truth waiting to surface. Laura said softly, "Secrets aren't meant to be safe." In that moment, a single decision could shift the entire war. In Daniel's office, the silence cracked. His trusted ally, Mark, said, "You're losing control." Daniel replied. I never had it. Mark shook his head. You think this is about money? It's about trust. The screens behind them showed stocks plummeting again. We can still fight, Daniel said. But Mark's eyes were filled with doubt. We're fighting ghosts. Outside, lightning struck, illuminating their reflection in the glass. Partners now divided by disbelief. Every friendship in the company turned into a transaction. The walls of ambition had become cages. Night fell over the skyline as Ethan entered the dark office where Amelia waited. We need cash, not loyalty, he said coldly. She replied. And you'll sell what's left? Ethan stepped closer. If it keeps us alive. Amelia's eyes hardened. At what cost? A pause lingered before he answered. Survival is profit. Outside, the city glowed indifferent to their desperation. She turned away, realizing the empire they built had no soul left to save. In that silence, the war wasn't against competitors. It was against themselves. Amelia stared at the encrypted document Laura sent. It's all here, she said quietly. Daniel leaned over her shoulder. Show me. The screen displayed old audit logs, signatures from names Daniel trusted. These were approved under my account, he whispered. Amelia frowned. You didn't sign these. The lines of data exposed a forged trail that reached years back. Daniel's pulse raced. Someone used me, Amelia said, or someone wanted to make sure you'd take the fall. The truth wasn't hiding anymore. It was pointing at them both. The company's darkest secret had been built with stolen identities. Laura met Amelia in the underground parking lot, glancing nervously at every corner. They're watching, she said. Amelia replied. Then we don't have much time. Laura handed her a flash drive. It's proof. The transfers, the forged accounts, all of it? Amelia hesitated. If we release this, the company dies. Laura looked up, voice steady. It's already dead. Tires screeched somewhere in the distance, echoing like a warning. Amelia clutched the drive. Once this goes public, there's no turning back, Laura said. Then maybe the truth deserves a chance. Richard sat alone in his apartment, staring at a faded photo of his old firm. When Daniel arrived, Richard said, You want the truth? I built this system. Daniel's eyes darkened. You what? Richard continued. Back then, it was legal. We bent the rules, not broke them. But greed made it worse. He looked up, guilt heavy. You inherited my sins. Daniel clenched his fists. Then you knew this was coming. Richard nodded slowly. I warned you because I saw myself in you. Daniel turned toward the door, realizing the empire was poisoned from its roots. In the glass elevator rising through the tower, Daniel called Ethan. Why use my name on those accounts? Silence lingered before Ethan replied, Because no one questions the man at the top. Daniel said, You destroyed everything. Ethan's tone hardened. I protected myself. Below them, the city lights flickered like embers of a dying empire. Daniel whispered, You won't walk away from this, Ethan replied coldly. I already have. The call ended. Daniel's reflection merged with the skyline, showing the man both powerful and powerless, a symbol of truth cornered by greed. Back in the boardroom, Amelia stood before the projection screen. This is the truth, she said, displaying the forged transactions. Gasps filled the room. Daniel added, We were set up. Ethan stepped forward slowly. Prove it wasn't you. His smirk revealed the trap he'd built. Amelia uploaded the final file. Richard's confession, time-stamped and verified. Silence followed, heavy as judgment. Daniel met Ethan's eyes. You wanted a fall? Then you'll watch it. Outside, thunder rolled, echoing through glass walls. The truth wasn't freeing them. It was sentencing everyone. Daniel sat at his desk, the hum of the office the only sound. We have hours before the regulators arrive, he said, running his hand through his hair. Amelia replied, "And what about the investors? They'll demand answers." Daniel leaned back, voice low. "We tell them the truth or we lose everything." Ethan's phone buzzed in the corner, unread messages stacking like threats. Richard's words echoed, "This is the reckoning you can't avoid." Every choice felt like walking a tightrope over ruin. Daniel whispered to himself, "This empire might end tonight?" Laura Grant entered the office carrying a folder of damning evidence. "If we go public now, they'll retaliate," she said, urgency sharp in her voice. Daniel replied, "Then we fight before they strike," Amelia added. "We need a strategy," Laura nodded, tapping the folder. "One misstep and everything crumbles." Daniel stared out the window. City lights blurred by rain. "It's a gamble, but it's our only shot." Each heartbeat felt synchronized with the impending storm outside. They were no longer running from numbers, but from consequences of truth itself. Mark Reed confronted Daniel in the empty conference room. "You can't control this anymore," he said, pacing. Daniel replied, "Then I control how we face it." Papers and laptops were scattered like battlefield debris. Mark slammed his hand on the table. "It's all falling apart." Daniel's eyes burned with determination. "Not if we take the risk now." Amelia entered, voice steady. "It's time to expose everything." Outside, the city's skyline shivered under thunder. The stakes were no longer just financial. Every decision could cost them their lives and legacies. Ethan entered the trading floor as chaos erupted. "You think you can win," he said, voice sharp. Daniel stood firmly. "I don't need to win. I need to survive honorably," Amelia added. "And we'll take the truth with us." Traders moved like frantic chess pieces around them. Ethan smirked, leaning on the railing, watching the panic. "Then let's see if the truth pays." Daniel's pulse raced. Every monitor flashed red as final reports came in. The company teetered on collapse, yet the moral ground shifted in Daniel's favor. One gamble could define the rest of their lives. Amelia pressed the send button, releasing all evidence to regulators and media. Daniel whispered, "It's done." Ethan's eyes widened as notifications lit up his devices. Laura said softly, "It's irreversible now." The storm outside matched the storm inside their souls. Daniel stepped back, watching the fallout begin, a mix of fear and resolve in his gaze. Richard said quietly, "This is the price of truth." Every face in the office reflected the cost of secrecy and betrayal. They had gambled everything for integrity. The world would judge, but at least the secret could no longer control them. News alerts pinged relentlessly as Daniel watched the chaos unfold on multiple screens. "It's public," Amelia said, voice tight. Daniel clenched his jaw. "We knew this risk." Outside, journalists surrounded the building, capturing every reaction. Ethan paced his office, face pale. "They exposed everything," he muttered. Richard appeared quietly, saying, "Truth doesn't just shake walls, it shatters them." Daniel looked at his team, exhausted but resolute. "We can't fix the past, but we can own the present," he said. Every call, every headline, every decision now carried irreversible weight. The empire trembled under scrutiny. Daniel confronted Ethan in the private boardroom. "You orchestrated this," Daniel said, voice low. Ethan's smirk didn't waver. "Self-preservation is instinct," he replied. Amelia added, "And you broke every trust." Daniel slammed a folder onto the table. Evidence of manipulation, offshore transfers, false accounts. Ethan leaned back, unflinching. "Do what you must," he said. Daniel's hand hovered over the phone, ready to call authorities. Outside, the city lights flickered in sync with the storm. Every decision from this room could topple careers and lives, including their own. Richard faced Daniel in a quiet corner. "You'll be blamed for everything," he said softly. Daniel shook his head. "Then let them blame me. I'll expose the truth anyway. Richard sighed. You're stepping into fire. Daniel's gaze hardened. Better to burn with integrity than live in ashes of lies. Amelia joined, placing a hand on Daniel's shoulder. We'll face it together. The building hummed with tense silence, punctuated by distant thunder. Decisions made in this room would echo far beyond the company walls, altering the futures of every player in the game. The whistleblower, Laura, watched from her car as regulators entered the building. It's finally happening, she said softly. Daniel's team was inside briefing authorities, every document laid bare. Ethan's expression hardened as he realized no maneuver could save him. Amelia whispered, "We did the right thing, Daniel." Daniel nodded, voice heavy with relief and fear. Right or not, it will cost us. Rain splashed on the windshield like confetti for a stormy celebration. The reckoning wasn't just external. Inside, everyone felt the weight of choices finally catching up. Daniel stepped onto the balcony, city lights stretching endlessly. "It's over," Amelia said behind him. He exhaled slowly, feeling both relief and dread. Richard appeared quietly. "Over for some, not all," he murmured. Ethan's empire was crumbling. Daniel's company scarred but alive. Laura joined them, laptop in hand, confirming every transaction traced and verified. "The truth won't be forgotten," Daniel said. Amelia leaned against him, eyes scanning the horizon. Every decision, every exposure, every confrontation had led here. The city thrummed below, indifferent to the human cost of secrets finally revealed. Daniel walked through the empty office, echoes of past chaos lingering. "We survived," he whispered, voice heavy. Amelia joined him, holding a folder of reconciled accounts. "Survived, but at a cost," she said softly. The employees were gone, the trading floor silent. Richard appeared, leaning on a desk, murmuring, "Integrity isn't always rewarded." Daniel nodded, scanning the city skyline, lit by early morning sun. "We rebuild differently this time," he said. Outside, the city buzzed, unaware of the storm that had passed. Every corner of the office held memories of betrayal, courage, and lessons painfully learned. Laura Grant met Amelia and Daniel in a quiet cafe. "The files are archived," she said, taking a deep breath. Daniel replied, "Thanks to you, the truth stayed alive." Amelia smiled faintly. "We lost much, but at least no more lies control us." Laura looked outside, rain sprinkling lightly. "People will remember the story, even if names fade." Daniel nodded, feeling relief and fatigue in equal measure. Every whistleblower's courage had tilted the balance. Their financial battlefield now lay behind them, leaving scars and lessons that money alone could never repay. Daniel called a final meeting with his remaining team. "We rebuild on honesty," he said, voice firm but calm. Amelia added, "Transparency will be our foundation." Employees nodded, cautious hope in their eyes. Richard quietly observed from the corner. "This is your redemption," he said. Daniel replied, "Not mine alone. Ours together." Outside, the skyline shimmered under clearing clouds. Every document, every confession, every gamble had led to this fragile stability. The company might be smaller, scarred, but it was stronger morally, ready to face future storms with lessons learned. Ethan sat alone in his high-rise apartment, city lights reflecting off glass. "I underestimated them," he muttered. A modification on his devices reminded him of the exposure and collapse he caused. The empire he thought unassailable was now fractured. "Greed doesn't guarantee survival," he whispered. Rain started again, tapping against the windows like a persistent reminder. Meanwhile, Daniel and Amelia walked the empty office rooftop, breathing in the cool night air. "The past is gone," Daniel said, What matters is now. Amelia nodded, feeling weight lift from her shoulders. Lessons burned deep, yet hope remained. On the office rooftop, Daniel looked out across the city. We lost much, but we still have each other, he said. Amelia rested her hand on his arm. Laura joined them silently, laptop tucked under her arm. Richard spoke quietly. The company survived, but memories remain. Daniel nodded, voice filled with quiet determination. Memories guide us, not define us. The skyline glowed with first light, hope tinged with caution. Every betrayal, every risk, every revelation had forged a company and a team resilient to deception. The secret was gone, but the lessons it left would last forever.